Q. Thank you, Mr. President. I'm a student from Heidelberg, Germany, and my mother tongue is German. But my French is not good enough, so I ask my question in English. You mentioned in your speech that we are a lucky generation. We live in peace, we live in democracies and free states. And we are very pleased to have this situation in Europe. But this is not the case all over the world, even not in Europe. Look to Belarus, for example, there's an autocratic regime. And so my question concerns the many children all over the world that live in poverty. Under human rights violation. They have hunger, they have no education, and other problems. So what is your strategy, Mr. President, to solve this problem? President Obama, well, it's an excellent question, and the first of all. I think one of the things that we should be very proud of from the G20 summit yesterday was that we made a significant commitment to additional resources through the IMF and other mechanisms to provide assistance to emerging markets and poor countries that as I said, are bearing the burden of a collapse in the financial system that they had nothing to do with. The problem is so many of these countries had export-oriented markets. And when the economies contracted in our developing nations, it made them extremely vulnerable. You know, you have a country like Botswana, which is actually a well-managed country that has made enormous progress. but their main revenue generator is diamond sales. And they have literally seen the diamond market collapse in part because they couldn't get trade financing. In part because the demand in developed countries has dropped off. So we started to make progress there. Our most important task right now is helping them get through this crisis. Over the long term, though, we've got to have a strategy that recognizes that the interest of the developed world in feeding the hungry, in educating children, that's not just charity. It's in our interest. There's not a direct correlation between poverty and violence and conflict and terrorism. But I can tell you that if children have no education whatsoever, if young men are standing idle each and every day, and feel completely detached and completely removed from the modern world, they are more likely, they are more susceptible to ideologies that appeal to violence and destruction. If you have no health facilities whatsoever in countries in Africa, these days a pandemic can get on a plane and be in Strasbourg or New York City or Chicago overnight. So we better think about making sure that there are basic public health facilities and public health infrastructure in those countries. Because we can't shield ourselves from these problems. So that means developed countries have to increase aid. But it also means that the countries who are receiving aid have to use it wisely. My father was from Kenya. And when I traveled to Kenya, I had just been elected to the United States Senate. Everybody was very excited. And they greeted me as if I was already a head of state, and there were people waving and lining the streets. I went to speak at a university and I had to be honest, which was, America has an obligation to provide Kenya help on a whole range of issues. But if Kenya doesn't solve its own corruption problem, then Kenya will never grow. It will never be able to provide for its own. And so there's nothing wrong with the developed nations insisting that we will increase our commitments. That we will design our aid programs more effectively. That we will open up our markets to trade from poor countries, but that we will also insist that there is good governance and rule of law. And other critical factors in order to make these countries work. We spend so much time talking about democracy, and obviously we should be promoting democracy everywhere we can. But democracy, a well-functioning society that promotes liberty and equality and fraternity. A well-functioning society does not just depend on going to the ballot box. It also means that you're not going to be shaken down by police because the police aren't getting properly paid. It also means that if you want to start a business, you don't have to pay a bribe. I mean, there are a whole host of other factors that people need to. Recognize in building a civil society that allows a country to be successful. And hopefully that approach will be reflected not just in my administration's policies. But in the policies that are pursued by international agencies around the world. Okay, good. Alright, right up, I've got two of you, so you have to choose one. Which one should I call on? I don't want to. You're standing right next to each other. Oops. Well. I'm sorry, you know what, he actually called on the... No, 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 I was actually pointing down here. I didn't see those two ladies back there. Here you go, this one right here. Go ahead. Q. Well, hello, Mr. President. I'm sorry, I'm from Chicago, excuse me. President Obama, are you? Q. I'm also a student in the high school, the International High School. President Obama. Well, no, I'm sorry, if you're American I can't. Q. I'm also French. President Obama, wait, 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 hold on. She said she's also French. What does that mean? Q. Double nationality. President Obama, dual nationality. What do you think, should we let her ask the question? Okay, go ahead. Q. Thank you. Do you think that the economic crisis is an opportunity to restructure our industries in an ecological and sustainable way? And I also was wondering whether the dog was already in the White House or not. President Obama, we are getting a dog. This is a very important question in the United States. What kind of dog we're getting and when we're getting it? It should be there soon. I do think that in crisis there's always opportunity if it's used properly. So, for example, in the United States we decided to pass a large stimulus package. to help growth at a time when the private sector was having a very difficult time. Now, we could have just spent the money on the same old ways of doing things. But part of what we've decided was, if we're going to be spending a lot of government money anyway, why not spend it to double the amount of renewable energy? Why not spend it on retrofitting existing government buildings? So that we drastically reduce their energy consumption? Why not start building high-speed rail? One thing that, as an American who is proud as anybody of my country, I am always jealous about European trains. And I said to myself, why can't we have high-speed rail? And so we're investing in that as well. So on the transportation front, on with respect to building construction, on a whole range of issues, we are investing in new technologies that will make us more energy efficient. And that is one of the building blocks that's needed in order for us to reduce our carbon footprint and to work with other countries to achieve the climate change goals that I think are going to be so important. I'm getting the signal that I've only got time for 2 more questions. Oh. I'm going to ask that young man in the suit because he got dressed up today. I know he doesn't usually wear a suit. Yes. Go ahead, go ahead. Q. I just want to know, what do you expect from the French and the European countries regarding the war on terror? President Obama, good. That's a good question. Look, I think that over the last 7, 8 years, As I said in my speech, a lot of tensions have developed between the United States and Europe. And one of the legacies, I hope, from my administration is that we start bringing our historic alliance back together in a much more effective way. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not going to have honest disagreements. All countries have disagreements between themselves. But I think that we can work much more effectively and cooperatively. And maintain that core trust that we have towards each other. Nowhere have we seen more suspicion than around questions of war and peace and how we respond to terrorism. When 9/11 happened, Europe responded as a true friend would respond to the United States. Saying, "We are all Americans." All of us have a stake in ensuring that innocent people who were just going about their business, going to work, suddenly find themselves slaughtered. All of us have an interest in preventing that kind of vicious, evil act. But after the initial NATO engagement in Afghanistan, we got sidetracked by Iraq. And we have not fully recovered that initial insight that we have a mutual interest in ensuring that organizations like Al-Qaeda cannot operate. And I think that it is important for Europe to understand that even though I'm now president and George Bush is no longer president, Al-Qaeda is still a threat. And that we cannot pretend somehow that because Barack Hussein Obama got elected as president, suddenly everything is going to be okay. It is going to be a very difficult challenge. Al-Qaeda is still bent on carrying out terrorist activity. It is don't fool yourselves because some people say, well, you know. If we changed our policies with respect to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, or if we were more respectful towards the Muslim world. Suddenly these organizations would stop threatening us. That's just not the case.